Alright guys, I hope that you are having maybe not a fantastic time, but an easy time with those scales. I know that when I was learning scales, the trickiest part definitely was trying to remember what the hands are supposed to be doing at the same time. It's very, very tricky, and it requires a lot of practice. Not only just time, but it also requires thinking sometimes outside of the box in terms of ways to practice the scales. So what I want to dedicate this video to is just giving you some tips and some tricks using a specific scale that should hopefully help you put both hands together. So I will go ahead and say, and I'll make obviously several announcements about this, your assignment for the week is going to be picking 3 of these scales and arpeggios and recording yourself playing them hands together at whatever tempo you feel like you can play them hands together at. Okay? It can be quarter note equals 30. I do not care. I'm just going to be looking for correct fingering and for good hand technique more than anything. The fingering is the most important part, so this is why it's going to be very important for this week's assignment to please put the camera on your hand so that I can see what is going on. Okay? Alright, so we're going to just use A minor since we spent the most time on that, and hopefully it should be one of the easier ones for you. So I'm going to swivel this over, and I probably will borrow this book for just a little bit, even though it's a little bit backwards. So if you go to all of this written right here, what can sometimes help, it helps when I'm learning pieces and things like that and trying to line complicated things up, it can help to write arrows right where tricky things are going to be. So what you can do, let me grab my pencil really quickly, is go to every time that your hand turns under and you're starting over again. So for A minor, if you look at 8-7, you have 1, 2, 3, and then your thumb goes under and you go to 1. It can be really helpful to just put a little circle around it like that, or put whatever you need to put around it to get your attention, okay? If you do that for both hands, you can start to look out for exactly not only when one hand is turning, but also what is the other hand doing during this time, okay? All right, the biggest clue for this is that when you get to the second octave, your thumbs should both be on those A's, okay? Not when you get to the top or start, though that's a little bit different, but your thumbs in the middle, so right here, if you can see, your thumbs should be together. If not, you have messed up somewhere along the way. So, hands separate practice, obviously I cannot stress that enough for both hands, just taking one hand, and then maybe pausing wherever you turned, just to really solidify in your brain, like, hi, my finger is turning here. That can help with doing it hands separately, okay? Another thing that you can do, I'm going to swivel, if you can do this with me really quickly, is actually picking up your hand and then thinking, okay, the next finger I'm going to use is 1, and I got to land on D. And then keep going. It looks a little bit odd, but honestly, even if you just take your hand and throw it and stop for a second, and then you have to think, hey, how do I start this next part? Because I've just always gone from the beginning to the end. That can force your brain to think about it a little bit differently. So let's do that actually really quickly in this video, and we're just going to do, let's do 1 octave and then stop, because that's basically all the changes that you need, okay? So we're going to start with A right here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Then pick up your hand. You can move it as far back as you want to. Count to 5 or something. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it, and then find your next note and put whatever finger is supposed to be on it. So we got to have 1 on D, okay? All right. Keep going. Okay, so we're about to turn, so let's throw our hands off for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted completely differently, but whatever. And then you got to find your next note. So I have already got my thumb on A right here. Okay? And you can do the exact same thing with your left hand as well, too. Okay? You can also use this in the arpeggio. So let's try left hand with an arpeggio down at 8-8. Okay? So start with just like we talked about. Only this time, don't put your go ahead and put your thumb on A. After the A, we're going to have to lift our hand. Okay? So A, C, E, A. Then lift your hand, like scratch your neck or whatever. And then, actually, this is hard for me. I've never done this before, so this should be interesting. But we need, our next note is C, and we want to put 4 on that. Good. And let's do it on the way back down, because that will be different as well. So A, E, C, and then lift your hand up, and 1 on A. So typically when we play anything, a lot of, even I fall into the trap sometimes of just running from things beginning to end. But a good practice is to start in different places and do little tricks like that. So another thing that you can do is actually start from the top and go back down and practice that just as a separate session. Because the biggest complaint I know that I've heard from people that I've been friends with that have taken piano classes is that they can do the scale on the way up, but they can't do it on the way back down. So that would be a very good thing to practice hands separately, is going back down. Okay, so now the big challenge is putting them hands together. So, like we talked about circling and we talked about stopping. You can do the exact same thing, putting it hands together and just literally freezing so that you can look at your hands and be like, okay, this is what we're doing right here. So the biggest thing that happens, honestly, is that you're trying to get through the scale so much that you forget what exactly is going on in the scale. So we're going to try that with the A minor scale, and then probably will not do it with the arpeggio, but you can do it with the arpeggio as well, even though there's less going on. Okay? So our first turn, like we talked about, is going to be up on D, so at the end of that first measure. So what we're going to do is stop right on the Ds. Okay? Alright, so we've got A, B, C, and we gotta turn our right hand. Okay, now in this break, I want you to hold this for at least, count to like 15 or something, and look and see exactly what your hands look like. We've got 2 on D, 1 on D, okay? Now our next turn is coming really quickly, so we're gonna keep going. So now, here is another place where our hands line up. This would be something I would mark in your music, like just right now. That marks up together, okay? All right, so stop and pause. 3s are both on F. And then another turn, and 1s should be on A. So every time one of your hands has to turn, stop, and hold it for like 15 seconds and look and be like, okay, what is going on right now? All right? Okay. Yeah, and anytime that your hands line up together, so in this case, basically the F's and the A's, write that in, okay? We also have it later. We did have it on C as well. We just did not have a turn there. So watch out for the C's are going to line up together too. So that's something you can do with all of the scales. And you can do it with the arpeggios too, and that'll actually be a little bit easier because you don't have as many notes going on, okay? So if you look down at 8-8, the only time really we have the exact same fingers is our thumbs are together on the A's in that second octave, okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about technique. This has been a little bit of a long video, but feel free to skip around a little bit, okay? So, technique. Whenever you have a turn, and actually I'm going to turn you right back here, some of the things that I see sometimes are really big gestures. And I think I've talked about this before. I know I've talked about it to one of my classes before, but I'll go ahead and repeat it. Is that the simpler that you can make your piano playing, the easier it is going to be for you in terms of movement, okay? So if we were playing like a bunch of crazy octaves, you're going to have to move in a different way than if you're just playing one note. So watch out for the arch we talked about, the nice curved fingers. And you're just going to slide your thumb actually underneath while you're playing the note right before it. And then reset your hand. Okay? And keep going. Okay? So, not only do you kind of keep the move simple, you're also moving ahead. An analogy I like to use is the idea of, I don't know much about sports, but there was some famous hockey player, and my brother will kill me for not knowing the name, but he said one time that the idea is to not to go where the puck is, but where the puck is going. I think that's the quote. It's kind of the same idea in piano. If we're just like so focused on where we are, sight reading becomes next to actually impossible, basically, and playing even becomes a lot more difficult. So you need to constantly think ahead with that, okay? So the technique, I would recommend doing hands separately. First, it's going to be a lot difficult to start with hands together. And that will be some feedback that I'll be watching for, especially when you all have your cameras on your hands and everything. So make sure that not only is that in place, but watch out for those things while you're practicing your scales this week. Okay? So like I said, pick 3 of these, hands together, both octaves, and submit them. So you can pick whatever that you want. Okay? But make sure your camera is turned on you because I will be looking for that to see how that is going.